Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll go ahead and get started. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce some people here with us tonight. First, I'd like to introduce Dr. Schaefnacher. She is the principal at Pond Gap Elementary. Not Pond Gap, sorry. The new Northwest Sector Elementary. I was going to lead into that. And we have Mr. Watson, our distinguished school board member. Thank you for being here tonight. We also have members of my team. He's the director of facilities and new construction, Mr. Schofer. And of course, my director of transportation, Mr. Dillingham, is also with us tonight. One last recognition, I would like to recognize Mr. Lang Lewis. He is the Region 2 director. So I'm glad you all were able to make it tonight and be here with us to answer any questions that you all may have. So this is really going to be a listening session. So a part of these town hall meetings is really to get your input. We'd like to get your input as we move forward and we look at rezoning. Of course, the reason behind a new school is growth, and there is obvious growth, especially in West Knox County. And so we are trying to address the needs of our students and ensure that they have the proper facilities for learning. The school zones that may or will be significantly impacted are Ball Camp Elementary, Carnes Elementary, and Hardin Valley Elementary. The new school that we are looking at, the new Northwest Sector Elementary School, will host 1,200 students. It will also be 124,000 square feet, 56 general ed classrooms, 2 art classrooms, 2 music classrooms, 3 teacher workrooms, the teachers will love that, gymnasium with a stage, and also it will be compliant to tornado shelter capacity for entire student population and staff. One thing that they're going to add also is 240 parking spaces. Dr. Schaefnacher, I'm sure your staff will appreciate that. So this is a layout of what the school will look like. And so it is a beautiful school, as you can see. And so I'm sure we've got some additional plans if you want that information, and we'll roll some of that out. But this is basically the layout of the new Northwest Elementary School. This is a little information for you all. Once again, this is a town hall meeting, a listening session. However, we do want to share some background information on how we got here. So the Knoxville-Knox County planning, basically when we look at rezoning and we look at building a new school, these are the things that the Knox County planning takes into account. So that they collect the data on births, building permits, and they provide population forecasts for Knox County. And so basically we use this information when we look at building out a new school, when we look at rezoning, and we look at how we are going to, come on in, welcome, you're fine, on how we move forward as far as new construction. Knox County schools, we develop enrollment forecasts by using enrollment trends. We design and recommend schools by attendance zones, and we propose that to the Board of Education. We also recommend elementary school zones to the Board of Education. We will be doing that on October 2022. So we will have 3 listening sessions. This is the second listening session. We will take this into account, and then we will roll into the 3rd listening session, and then we will have a decision on September the 22nd. The zoning considerations, what we look at, of course, school capacity, transportation, parent responsibility zones, geographic and man-made obstacles. So an example of that, when you talk about the bridge, everyone knows the notorious bridge in Carnes. When we think about navigating students to different areas of the county, we have to take those in consideration as well, and congruent elementary school boundaries. So basically, this is, once again, a timeline. Today is September the 7th. We will have another listening session tomorrow on the 8th, and then we will have our proposal ready for the board in October. However, we will start looking at drawing those lines, and we will have that ready for September the 22nd. We will present that to the community, and at that time, we will continue to gather input. The Board of Education will consider and vote on the recommendation on October the 5th. This is the current zone. So currently this is what it looks like for the 3 elementary schools. And this is your current enrollment. As you can see, Ball Camp Elementary is at 591, Hardin Valley Elementary is at 1415, and Carnes Elementary is at 1216. Now, we will take several questions, and I will hand you the microphone so we can capture some of that information on video. But these are some of the questions that came up at Ball Camp Elementary. Will the rezoning affect the middle and high schools? No. Okay, so the middle and high schools are currently set for the zones that the children will be in at the new Northwest sector and at the schools your child is currently at. So that will not affect the middle and the high school. What roads are going to be impacted or expanded? The northern extension of Cherahalla Boulevard to Coward Mill Road has already been completed. Knox County Engineering has plans to widen Coward Mill Road from Pellissippi Parkway all the way to Byington Soloway. They have released a portion of that road widening project for bids and have assured the school system that the widening of Coward Mill Road adjacent to the school site will be completed prior to the school opening. I will tell you that Mayor Jacobs and his department have been very accommodating and very supportive of Knox County schools. So they have assured us that that will take place. Is there land for expansion at the new school? At each end, there's 3 locations. Of the currently planned classroom wings, there is the space for possible future expansion. So you would go out from the ends of those areas in the building. So those were the 3 major questions. What you have here is the rezoning at knoxschools.org. We ask that you please submit your information. Any questions that you have, you may take away some key talking points tonight and want to ask additional questions. Please feel free to go to that address and ask your questions. We want to capture as much information as humanly possible before we move forward with the rezoning. And so for any more information tonight, what we will do is we'll ask questions, and then we will have what I call a parking lot. I said that at the last meeting, and I realized that I'm using teacher language, right? I'm a former principal. I'm currently the assistant superintendent of operations for Knox County Schools, but my background is teaching and being a principal. So a parking lot is basically this right here where you write your questions, and we'll take that information and capture that information. If you have urgent questions or if you don't feel comfortable sharing your questions or comments here, you can certainly write up here or you can submit them to that email address. So I know I went through that fairly quickly because I want to give you all ample time to ask questions. So we will open it up to the floor for a Q&A session.
I have a current 4th grader at Carnes Elementary. We live probably where it's going to be affected. Are we going to have the opportunity to choose to continue her final 5th grade year at the school that she's gone to since kindergarten, or are we going to be forced to move on to the new zoning?
That's an excellent question. I will tell you this is where your input is critical. We need to get that input from families so we understand what the needs are of families. There are 2 ways you can look at that. You can look at grandfathering students in who are in the 4th grade, but then there's the other question of siblings. I will say the majority of the time when you grandfather in sibling, it creates overcrowding in the current schools. But I will say we're going to look at both requests. We are certainly going to look at that request. We are going to look at the student count for students that would possibly be grandfathered in, and we will definitely take that in consideration. But it does help that you share those concerns as well. Yes, ma'am.
Since you had referenced that you will be living in an area that's going to be affected, what areas are you anticipating that will be affected? Can we use the map, or are you not ready to use a map yet for that?
So what we can do is we can talk tonight, and once again, my Director of Transportation can speak more to where the new Northwest Sector Elementary School will be, and it can give you an idea. He could actually kind of outline an area that would help you understand logistics, but to pinpoint it down, we really look at where the student populations are and so forth, and how many rising students and whatnot. Mr. Dillingham?
Could we go back to the zoning map? I'm going to use my old-fashioned pointer finger. So the red star is the location of the new school. So the zone is not in any way set at this point, so I can't give specifics because we don't have specifics to give. But just in general terms, what you're thinking about is kind of a circle around that star. So the green is obviously Hardin Valley Elementary, the yellow is Carnes, the red is Ball Camp. So that circle would be taking a little bit from each one of those places. The specific amounts, obviously, like I said, hasn't been determined yet. But as Dr. Adams alluded to, when we're drawing a zone, you can't always just go with a straight, okay, we're going to go 3 miles in every direction from where the school is, because populations are not, oh, thank you. Yeah, there we go. That's better than my finger. So there's the school, and here are the various zones. So populations are not distributed evenly. So if we are looking at these 3 schools having too many kids in them, if we just draw the 3-mile circle like I talked about, we may not get the number of kids that we need to provide the relief that we need in each one of these places. For example, if you look out here in the deep west part of the Hardin Valley zone where there aren't a whole lot of roads, that's a lot of farmland. Like, we can rezone that and get 7 kids out of that, even though it's 300 acres. So that doesn't do us a whole lot of good. So we have to balance the needs both of transportation, but also the number of seats that we have in each one of our buildings, the distance that families are going to have to travel to get to each one of these schools. Like, there is no one factor. There are many factors that go into these decisions. And so part of that is we want to hear from y'all about what is important to you, what you would like to see to inform us as we go through this process.
Thank you.
Mr. Dillingham, is it fair to say that because the Hardin Valley School has the most current elementary school students in it, then likely that's where the highest population is, and likely the largest zone pulled to the new school would come from the green area?
I think that's fair.
Okay.
I mean, if we're going to, one of the things we're trying to do, like I said, is to relieve the crowding in these areas. And so that is one of the areas that we were most crowded. And so that is definitely one of our goals. I mean, we're going to a lot of time and money and expense to build this school, so we want to make sure that it is accomplishing everything that we can when we do it.
Thank you, Mr. Dillingham. That's okay. That's what we're here for.
So, speaking of being grandfathered in, what would that process look like, and are you even considering that for, let's say, you have a first grader who's been in the school for 2 years but is really enjoying the atmosphere that she's in and has a lot of friends? Would you consider someone that new, not a fourth grader, but someone earlier on in their education, being grandfathered in if the parents would really want that for their child?
Yeah, so once again, that would, if that's a concern for families, we definitely need that input. But when you look at grandfathering in, most districts, and I've been in 3 districts, and that's Oak Ridge, we've done rezoning several times, and even Hamilton County, which is all of Chattanooga. When you grandfather students in, they always look at the rising 4th grade student. And so it would really depend on how many students you're talking about, right? Because you could have a school full of students that would be grandfathered in, and it defeats the purpose. So, but I say all that to say this: we would look at that, definitely look at that and see if that's a possibility. And if the students that were moving to the new Northwest Sector Elementary, or if they were close to capacity or at capacity, it could be a possibility. I will say, in my experience, that's usually not the norm. It's usually just the rising fourth grade students. But not that we would not take a very hard look at that. Yes, ma'am.
So saying all of that, I know that there are processes to request transfers. So let's say you don't get the grandfathered in, but you want to still continue to be at Carnes Elementary. Would that fall underneath the category of requesting a transfer? Or no, because that would be a newly zoned. So
Yeah, it would have to be a very special circumstance for that transfer to be approved, for the simple fact that, to your point, you're in a different zone, and the facilities, there are no different. The education, the facilities are new facilities, and the education opportunities will be the same, and so that would have to be on a case-by-case basis. And I always say a case-by-case basis for transfers. I'm not saying that it wouldn't, because there could be some extenuating circumstances that I'm not aware of, but it would have to be a very special situation for that to be approved.
Would it be a safe assumption that you're on the border, right on the border, that you're going to be moved into that school?
I heard the question. Do you want to capture that, or do you want me to go ahead and answer? I know they want that on the mic. He doesn't want a mic. So the question was, is it a safe assumption that if you're right on the border, would you be zoned for the new Northwest elementary school? I will say this. I have never seen a situation in my years that there wasn't a family that was right on the border that was not zoned for the new school. I'm not saying that this is the situation here. I will give you a prime example. When I look at the zones and I point out certain areas to Mr. Dillingham, he knows the map so well, he can say to me, oh no, that's a farm, or oh no, that's a cul-de-sac with one home. It's a very unique block. So there are situations where they won't be right on the line, but in my experience, that has always been an issue, and hence that's why rezoning it's tough. So that is a good possibility, yes. Yes, ma'am.
So in our particular case, we are on the very edge of the Carnes/ball camp. Literally, people across the street from us go to ball camp. And so it's kind of one of those, would this rezoning affect existing schools, not just the new schools? Would it possibly affect existing schools?
As far as students going to the new North?
Well, like I said, we are on the Carnes ball camp right now. So if there's some movement out of the ball camp region to the new school, so you can balance students out of Carnes, we probably we're wondering, is there a possibility of us being affected to go into ball camp?
Excellent question. You will not be moving from a elementary school to another elementary school other than the new Northwest Sector Elementary School. That's an excellent question. So we're not going to just move students around to different schools to balance out the school. Are there any additional questions? I'm going to give you all the appropriate wait time as a teacher, so I'm very patient. Yes, sir.
I was just curious, is there an estimate right now about how many students will be relocated to the new school?
That is an excellent question. Let's bring that information back. Okay, what we can do, and we had discussed, one thing we want to look at, and this came up at the last meeting, is can we look at the percentage of overcapacity for each school? And we said that we would take a look at that. So we can certainly look at that information, and we can certainly look at, I don't like to give a hard count. I live in percentages. So we'll see if we can bring a percentage back. That's a great question. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
So, being that my daughter is young, she's still involved in several extracurricular activities. She is in Girl Scouts based out of this elementary school. She is on a local sports team, and I help coach that, and it's all Carnes based. What would change if she were to be rezoned to a different school? How would that affect her extracurricular activities, or would it not? I'm not familiar, but it seems like it could.
So I see Ms. Shaveknocker. She's chomping at the bit to answer this question, so I'll let her take this question. Dr. Shaveknocker, I apologize.
So the majority of extracurriculars at the elementary level are not school affiliated. They are second party affiliated. They're club sports typically. So it's like you mentioned at the last one, it's a school branding that we are typically thinking of, that our minds go to, like Carnes Elementary, Carnes Middle, Carnes High. Same thing for Hardin Valley. But then you've got Ball Camp, who doesn't quite fit into that school branding. And so this school will be similar to that. It's kind of a hodgepodge in the different communities. So it should not impact extracurriculars because those are not school affiliated. Yes, they use school facilities a lot, but it will not change any of the extracurriculars.
And I can speak to this as a parent from a 5 elementary, 2 middle school, and 1 high school from Oak Ridge. My children went to Oak Ridge High School, but they from the elementary up. They didn't have the experience of knowing anyone outside of Oak Ridge High School. And yes, they came together once they were at Oak Ridge High School, but I have several friends who have students from or have children in Knox County schools, and it amazes me at how many of their friends go to different high schools. And that solely because they start at the elementary school and they go their separate ways, but they keep those strong relationships and they are involved and active in the community. And so it's not, if it's not school based, then you just grow your friend group. So it really gives much more opportunity. And I know that's not the greatest answer, because as a parent, of course, you want your children to come all the way up with the same friend group, but it does expand their friend group and give them an opportunity to grow. I always try to find the silver lining. Do you all have any comments that you want to share with us so we can take some of your concerns in consideration? Mr. Shover, you want to speak to that bridge?
I will. Again, we're not, the Knox County Schools is not administering that project. Knox County Engineering is. We have seen the drawings for the portion in the area around the elementary school, since those have now been released for bid. We have not seen their drawings for the overall. I can't imagine that they're going to widen the road without widening that bridge as well. I know one of the things that has put Knox County Engineering a little behind schedule where they'd like to be is they're dealing with the railroad company in some instances. They're dealing with 135 property owners. There's a bridge involved. So I think, to my knowledge, the bridge will likely be widened as well.
Thank you, Mr. Shover.
I guess my comment is our son is going to start kindergarten, so we're not as involved in it at this point. But I think for me, the bigger thing is just being able to get him more easily there. And we're like right on the border where they're doing all the shottery construction and things like that. And so we're like a 1/10 of a mile technically closer to Carnes, but really Amherst is easier for us to get to. And so, but I don't see Amherst really being impacted here. So I guess my comment is, for me, my comment is that like ease of transport is a bigger impact for me because we're starting out fresh anyway with kindergarten. And so I am curious though that it really is just those 3 schools impacted and not Amherst when it is really close to, like Carnes and all of that. So, yeah.
Yes, we will be pulling from those 3 schools. And I don't know if that helps you or answers your question, or if you just... Those are the 3 schools we will be pulling from.
I'm sure I'm going to get in trouble for asking this, but great new school, great new covered walkways, amazing. Are we looking at upgrading any of our existing schools with covered walkways, i.e. Carnes Elementary? That would be for him, I believe.
Actually, that's for me.
Even better. Thank you, Mr. Adams. Yes. Are we looking at adding some upgrades to Carnes Elementary? Because we have dumped a lot of money into this well-needed new school, but there's also existing schools that are quite old and do need some upgrades as well.
So the way that Knox County Schools, any large school district, they create capital plans. So it's really by need, and not that I wouldn't love to upgrade every facility in Knox County. Even if we did have a capital plan to upgrade every facility in Knox County, you would go by need, number one. But then now with the materials, the delay, it has been a challenge. So it's been really difficult for us to come up with ongoing capital plans because the timeline is so stretched out. Mr. Schofer and I have had many conversations. I will say, to answer your question, yes, we are looking at every facility. Yes, we are trying to really hone in on capital plans and see that by the need, but we are not looking to neglect any schools that need upgrades.
I know it's been an ongoing thing for about 6 years that we've been trying to get this on capital plans. Sorry, it's been about a 6-year process. My son just went through the school, and we've been trying to get covered walkways in the school for almost 6 years. So it would just be nice to put that on you guys, and I'm sure other principals say the same.
Ms. Harrington, please capture that with the... No, thank you for sharing. Yes, ma'am. It's okay. Ask away.
So, being a full-time, I work full-time. Childcare is kind of hard to come by, especially childcare that transports your child back and forth from school to where they need to go. I am so fortunate to be able to go to Shades, or we utilize Shades right across the street. What would be the childcare situation for the new school? Will there be an adjacent facility that is convenient, such as Shades, where school's let out and they walk across the street and I don't have to worry about that? Or I'm sure that's been thought of.
Dr. Schaefer, I know you've probably been in touch with the community members and may have the answer to that.
So I'm a mom of 5, and I depend on the YMCA where my kids go, which is comparable to Shades. There's a variety of different daycares, but that is something that I will look at very first thing at getting, because there are lots of parents that need that and depend on that. So as far as I'm concerned, we will have something there located at the school for after school care.
But will that be in time for school to start?
I'm aiming at that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because it's very difficult.
Yes, it is. As a mama, I get it. Mm-hmm.
And I need my job.
Yes, yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any additional questions, comments, or concerns? All right. I would like to once again thank Board Member Watson and Board Member Henderson, for joining us this evening. I know you all have a very busy schedule, and we certainly appreciate you taking the time to come out and spend time with us tonight. Once again, if you have any questions, rezoning@knoxschools.org. She gives me the evil eye when I don't get that right, so make sure you get this right. Rezoning@knoxschools.org. Please share any questions, comments, or concerns that you have. We're certainly open to any suggestions, and we certainly want to capture any questions that you all have. Y'all have a great night. Once again, don't forget the parking lot. If you want to add any of your questions, comments, or concerns, feel free to use the parking lot. We will be here until you all are ready to leave. So if you have questions, we're here for any questions, or if you just want to come up and have a conversation, we're here for that as well. Thank you so much.